What's going on, everybody? Shady's on Broadway here, and today I have a new video for you guys. I thought this would be a pretty unique video to make. It's not something I've seen made before, so I figured I'd give it a shot. What is the strongest development card in Settlers of Catan? So we're going to get right into it. Context. There are 25 different types of cards in the standard 4-player game of Catan. There are 14 knights, 5 victory points, 2 monopolies, 2 Europlennies, and 2 road builders. And the rules for the development cards. You can't play a development card on the same turn you buy it unless winning with a victory point, and you can only play 1 development card per turn. Now keep in mind that these cards in rank that I'm about to list, I'm considering them in the point of mid-game, where each player has about 5 points already. I thought this was the best way to look at it because I think mid-game takes the longest in terms of how the game plays out, and also with trade and player interaction. I think the mid game is the most important, other than the initial settlement placement, of course. But that's where I decided to go with this video. So, knights, why do they matter? The strengths: strong table talk. You can convince other players to go after someone else or trade with you because you'll play a knight and block their number or steal one of their cards. The 3 knights give you 2 victory points for the largest army. And you can move the robber off your tile to allow you to gain more resources. And it's hard to steal the largest army once acquired. So in the game of Catan, the army, in my opinion, is really important because most players do in fact win with the army, from what I understand. From my personal experience, I know technically people with the road win more often on average, but it's very close. But from my personal experience, the people with the army win more, and that's out of my several hundred game experience. Weaknesses: there's a lot of knights. Drawing more with the army is already bad, so if you have army already, you do not want to draw anymore. Army is particularly more important when you need 3 and nobody else goes for it, or you need to get up to 4 because somebody has 3 already. But yes, it's a bad card when you already have the army. If you're already behind on the army, this is also the worst card to draw, because you can't play catch up. When you're playing catch up, somebody will just buy another knight because there's so many in the deck. In most cases, every player will play at least 1 knight unless they go with a road strategy, so you'll expect to see a lot of these guys. Monopolies, why do they matter? Strengths: allow you to produce multiple cards in 1 turn, huge game changer. Allows you to steal cards from your opponents, hurting them and helping you in the process. So strongest in the hands of experienced players, so you can gain multiple cards in 1 turn. Weaknesses: easiest card to misplay, potential for little to no gain when played. It's usually harder to play with more experienced players as they're less likely to hold onto cards. So a couple points here. I've seen many games where somebody will buy a development card, they'll get a monopoly, they'll play it, and they get 1 card or 2 cards. That's a complete waste. Typically, you want to hold on to your monopoly card until you're about to win. That's usually the best way to play it, and it's the strongest way to play it, in my opinion. You're going to want to wait until there's at least 10 cards to grab. Sometimes there's very few situations where you want to play it. If it gets you a city very early on, then it's worthwhile to play, or if it gets you 2 settlements, it's worthwhile to play. Basically, if it gives you a big advantage over your opponents, then it is worthwhile to play. However, I've seen many players, when they're playing with really good players, they won't hold on to their cards, and the monopoly becomes weaker because people are expecting a monopoly, so they'll try to get rid of their cards as fast as possible. Anyway, moving on. Victory points, why do they matter? They give you 1 point, and points are how you win the game, obviously. Can be played as soon as they're bought to win, of course. People will assume you're losing if you can bluff well. So those are the strengths. And I can touch on a couple points here. When you're buying victory points, it's a double-edged sword because, simply speaking, if you have a bunch of them, people will assume you have them if you're not playing them. And if you're already in a point where you're tied with other players or winning, they will always target you. However, if you don't have enough, you have maybe 1 or 2, and you're a couple points behind your opponents, not including the victory points, people will let you slide by really easily. So the weaknesses of the cards are near useless early on when you're trying to gain board presence or resources from other players. And you can't play them anytime you want, and of course they don't give you any resources. If you don't play your cards, people will assume you have one and accuse you of winning, putting a large target on your back. I already went over that. So yeah, next one. Road builders, why do they matter? You're able to cut off players from buildings. Allows you to expand very quickly, very efficiently, very useful early on. Allows you to go for the longest road, which is 2 points. It's great for ore wheat sheep players or players without large amounts of wood and brick. But the weaknesses. A very weak card to draw late game when going for army, road, or VPs. You've already built everywhere you can or need to go. Not a strong card when you have a good wood brick setup. When you're already drawing lots of wood and brick, usually you already have the potential to build lots of roads, so you're trying to go for different cards. But I've seen situations where a road builder is drawn from a wood brick player and they're able to win with the longest road because somebody's already competing with them. There's a lot of cases where somebody else will also have strong wood and brick, so it can be a useful card to play to basically catch up with them or to beat them. Your plenties, why don't they matter? Strengths, are there even any? Allows you to hold on to cards that would otherwise be stolen from a 7. Allows you to gain resources that you don't have. And it's good for players that struggle communicating with others for trades. I would say the strongest value this thing has is being able to play it in a game where you're not using voice chat and you're not playing in real life. Where a game where you're not really going to be communicating too much with your opponent aside from the usual complaint in the chat. It's going to be very useful because sometimes people won't trade with you when you're offering these trades on Colonist or Catan Universe. So it's going to be the only way you can get access to those cards, other than 4-for-1ing or 3-for-1ing, of course. But yeah, so I think the biggest value too is the fact that you can hold on to 2 cards and not be robbed from the 7. So it's basically a reserve, which I think is very useful in being able to hold on to the cards that otherwise would be stolen from. And of course you get to basically gain access to cards you don't have. Like if you don't have an ore set up, then 2 ore I think it's one of the stronger ways to go about doing it. So, weaknesses. A strong ore wheat sheep player would rather have a road builder card, leaving this card only useful for those needing an early city. You need 3 cards to get, or you spend 3 cards to get 2, which I think is a really big drawback. If you save this card, people will assume you have a monopoly or VP and be less willing to trade with you. If you don't spend what you get immediately, people are more likely to target you since you assumedly drew a rare resource. So, now we're going to go into what I think is the top 5 in my particular order. Number 5, You're Plenty. So I think this is the weakest development card. I think everybody saw this one coming though. I think the biggest complaint with this card is that you're spending more cards to acquire it than you are getting out of it. The biggest value I think you can get out of this card is getting 2 ore when you already have a strong wheat spot and can 3-for-1 or 4-for-1 the other ore that you need. But it really depends on the board. If you have a weak brick wood board, taking a road from this may be better, but then wouldn't you just want a road builder? Overall, I think this card could have been better if they allowed you to play it as soon as you got it, but that's my opinion from a game dev standpoint. So yeah, I don't think this is going to be a surprise to anybody. This might be a surprise to some of you guys though. Number 4, Road Builder. I know I put this card lower on the list than some other people would, but I think you'll see why in a second if I can explain. I do believe that it's because the real value of this card shines with the ore wheat sheep players, but the thing is that ore wheat sheep players can usually offer their rare ore for brick or wood anyway, putting less value on this card. Essentially, you're trading two of the 3 best resources in the game for 2 brick and 2 wood, which are normally weaker resources. Don't get me wrong, it's awesome to be able to play this card when you have the potential to win this road, or when you need to cut somebody off early on, but from my point of view, I'd rather have a VP or Monopoly. By the way, I should say that the rating of these cards take place mid-game. I already mentioned this earlier, where most of the trading and interaction takes place. I do think Road Builder is the strongest early game card. If you can draw this when everybody's at 2 or 3 points, I do think it is the strongest card in the game. But like I said, this takes place in the late mid-game stages, which is how I'm doing the rating. Number 3, Victory Points. I've had a few games where I pulled multiple of these suckers, and even games where I pulled all of them. The awesome thing is that you can be behind and easily convince other people that you're losing and pull a surprise victory. If you see players that haven't played their development cards, particularly when the robber is on them, always assume it's a monopoly or a victory point, but it's most likely going to be a victory point, especially if it's late game where all the cards are already, where there's lots of cards out there and you don't see people using the monopolies. The fact that it's a direct help to your win condition is why this card is so high on the list. Alright, number 2, Knights. So I definitely put Knights higher on the list than I think most people would. But I think the Knight is the easiest way to win Settlers of Catan. Making sure that your numbers aren't blocked in order to produce more, to manipulation and table talking, the card has real value in the right hands. It's a guarantee that you'll take a card, and the potential to earn 2 victory points from the largest army is amazing. The best part is you'll block rare resources or good numbers from one or many players. My favorite part about this card is blocking 3 players at once, especially when they share like a 8 ore or a 6 wheat. It's also the most common card, meaning you'll see a lot of it. Yeah. And last but not least, Monopoly. The potential to steal 19 cards just means that this card has to be considered the best. I personally had many games where Monopoly is able to steal ore for 2 cities, or steal so many woodbrick that you're able to take the road and win. Overall, it's the most deadly card in the game, and I would not like to face somebody with it. In most cases, an ore wheat sheep player with a Monopoly will likely monopolize the wood and bricks that everyone else has plenty of. Don't hold on to your cards, folks. Always be sure that you use your ports or trade with other people when possible. And that's it. That's what I think the strongest development card in that order is. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what your thoughts are down below. If you disagree or agree with me, I might make an updated video on this matter. But I'd love to hear you guys' feedback. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll check you guys out next time. See you later.